So this is the Afterburn. Welcome to the Afterburn. All right. We appreciate the opportunity to share back and forth and get some feedback, your thoughts, your questions, maybe get some answers to some of those questions here about what I just taught, okay? And we'll begin here with John, Mr. John Conover.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'm just curious, do we use this information for husband and wife to vet for looking for that wife?
Yes, okay? Look, you might not be able to figure out, necessarily how she's going to ultimately be. You got to ask yourself first, is this a person I want to do my role with? Okay? See, again, look, I want to make this very bluntly stupid. We start off with, ooh, she's hot. Ooh, she's cute. Ooh, look, that's, ew, okay? It's stupid, okay? As a criteria. The question should be, oh, she's gotten my attention. Now I need to figure out, can I have a relationship ultimately where I would give myself for her? That I would protect her, okay? Look, I don't know if I jump in front of a bullet for my best friend or for anybody else that I care. I would do that for my wife. I would do that for my kids. Well, don't marry anybody you wouldn't do that for, okay? Because that's what it means for the man, that you should be able to give of yourself for them. So if anything would ever go, you'd be like, take me, not her. That's what Messiah did. Some of you are like, take her. All right, I'm going to mention a terrible meme I saw. It wasn't terrible. It was like from some old, TV show or something, and it was like a little skit, and they're in the bank, and a robber comes in, grabs the guy's wife, puts the gun on, and says, nobody move, or she gets it. And the husband starts going. Okay? See, he clearly did not get this. And then the guy with the gun's like, what are you doing? You said, don't move, or she gets it. Go ahead. So from the vetting process, okay, watch how she treats you. Does she treat you with respect? Watch how she treats other authorities in her life. How does she handle those? Does she treat them with respect? And of course, ladies, let's reverse this. Look at the guy. Does he have his life together? Because if he doesn't have his life together, how's he going to have your life together? I mean, seriously. All right, look. In real estate, you can make a lot of money and do well at times. It could also blow up in your face when you buy a fixer-upper. Don't do that in life with people, all right? Don't marry a fixer-upper. Because that won't be well when you need to put it back on the market. Okay? No, I mean, try to find somebody that is already ready and already exemplifies these traits as much as you can see through whatever level of interaction you have, all right? When you're in a group of people, if you're looking at the woman's side of it, you're the guy looking at the woman. See how she treats any of the men in that group. See how she treats the other people in that group. Where's her behavior matching kind of what you're looking for? Ladies, the same thing. You see him in a group. How is he? Does he show any authority? Does he show respect for other people? How does he treat the ladies in the group? Even if it's just a group social thing, right? Observe, learn, okay? And then make a decision. Is that good?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Mr. Pete.
Thank you, Rabbi. So I noticed in 1 Peter 3, verse 1, says the exact same thing.
Okay, hold on. That's next week.
I knew this was happening.
If I do the first 21 verses just quick as a sort of a set to kind of give context, that I might do from chapter 5 here. Otherwise, I am going to 1 Peter 3 next, okay? So that will absolutely come next. And yes, the first verse A says, in the same way, wives, be subject to your own husbands, okay?
Okay.
But it's going into a whole nother piece of this that we'll cover then.
So fully expecting to have to sit down after I mentioned 1 Peter 3, verse 1, I decided I need to have something else to mention. So I wanted to state publicly that Brenda and I have been married for over 22 years. And we've been through many things in our marriage. We've suffered much loss. We suffered my absence while I was away in law school. We've been through many, many things. But the single best evolution in our marriage, at least from what I think, has been in applying what you and this leadership has taught us with regard to the proper foundation for a marriage and how to conduct ourselves with each other. And so I wanted to give you credit for that, because I see that every day, that's where we are, and we are where we are in our marriage because of listening to you.
Oh, amen. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, Chris.
If I was married for 22 years, it'd be when I was like 1 year old. So that was not.
No context for that
Okay.
whatsoever. No idea what it is. No, because he said he was married for 22 years. Okay.
Okay.
Look, listen, I've been married for 25 years before you were born, so there you go.
That's true. Yeah. Well, yeah. 1999. Yeah. Okay. So I really liked how you kind of de-spiritualized some of these passages to like. It's making me see some of these other parts in Ephesians and Corinthians in that light. So I had a couple ideas. One was in chapter 4 of Ephesians, verses 15. But maintaining the truth in love, we grow in all respects unto him who is the head, Messiah. And so you're talking about the head and growing. And I was thinking about how the wife would be the assembly growing into the head, which is the husband, and thinking how if your husband is younger than the wife spiritually, like as far as like how long they've been doing the walk and everything, that can be problematic because the wife is supposed to grow into, in any respect, into what the husband has already been doing. And you were talking about in a teaching about how your wife knew a lot of scripture, but she was looking for somebody who knew more than her. So that could be applied to in chapter 4.
Amen. Yeah. Look, I mean, she told me that, sadly, some of the men that she was vetting, call it dating or vetting, just like she would meet these guys, and they didn't know the word, they didn't study the word, and she was tired of sort of leading in that way, feeling like she didn't have someone she could look to, ask questions that would actually know, all right? And so Abba gave her the rabbi. I mean, that was the way he answered her prayer, But she knew that role wasn't supposed to be hers. And so she did what she did herself because it was part of her own growth, but she still was wanting somebody to take that lead. Somebody that, because she does such a great job with the children's program, but every now and then she will come to me and say, I need some help with this verse, or understanding what he's trying to say here. And she comes with tremendous expectation and confidence that I will have that answer, that Abba will give me that, or I already have it in whatever way. And that's what she'd always wanted. And she'd been with, when I say been with, I mean, she just knowing well enough, like I said, observing people in the group, wasn't actually dating these guys, but she would meet guys and they'd just find out they're not in the Word. They don't know. Okay, they're not ready for where she was way in and focused. She was a studier. She still is, okay? And so, it's very challenging. Look for the person that you need. Okay, she needed somebody. So I think what impressed her the first time that we were ever anywhere together, we were invited to the Erev Shavuot, a little hanging out at somebody's house after Saturday services. Sunday was Shavuot. And they decided to have a little Bible study. It was like, I don't know, was it 4 of us? And almost immediately I ended up taking over the whole thing and just talking and teaching whatever I was doing because I was just being me. Okay, but I think she looked over and was like, oh, okay. He knows, he knows the word. But I was just being me. I wasn't trying to impress her or anything. This is what I, do. But it turned out that's what she was looking for. That was one of those little check boxes, Okay, Chris?
And the other part was when you were talking about finding a person who with which you find as your home. It reminded me of last time you were teaching in Ephesians 2, in verses 20 and 21, 21, in whom all the building being joined together grows into a set-apart dwelling place in Yahweh, and in whom you are also being built together into a dwelling of Elohim in the Spirit. And that, I was thinking, could also despiritualize in a way 1 Corinthians, not despiritualize, but have another way of looking at 1 Corinthians 6. Of course, we have 6:19.
Right.
So I was looking at if that had to do with marriage, and in verse
19 is that you are the dwelling place.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You're bought with a price.
And so in verse 16 it says, "Or do you not know that he who is joined to a whore is one body? For he says, the two shall become one flesh." And you were talking about the one flesh as being fleshly. "And he who is joined to the master is one spirit," like becoming one spirit, you're talking. And I guess, dropping down, you see, "Do you not know that your body is the dwelling place of the set-apart spirit in you, and which you have from Elohim, and you are not your own?" And thinking how like the wife could be applied herself in that, for you were bought with a price, therefore esteem Elohim in your body and in your spirit, which are of Elohim. So if you expand that into marriage with the husband and the wife, I thought like that dwelling place is not just, because I've always thought of the dwelling place as being like Yahweh, me, and spirit and whatever, but that dwelling place being a husband and wife is such a interesting thing to me. So I thought that was cool.
Sure. No, I think that's good there. And the idea of even bought with a price. I mean, ladies, when you agree to marry your husband, he is buying you with a price. Bear with me for a second. He is committing to provide for you. That's a price he's going to pay for the rest of your lives together. I will take care of you. So you are bought with a price. Of course, you have to believe he's going to take care of you. Now, it's not like you bought with a price, like you purchased as a slave and you just have to do whatever he wants. He's made a commitment to pay a price ongoing for you for your life. Okay? And so there's a picture there, I think, that kind of fits with that as well. Sarah Beth.
So I wanted to thank you. It's been many times I've gone through these kind of scriptures like Ephesians 5 and gone, I am no wiser for having read it than I was before I read it. But this time when you were explaining it, every verse it was like, oh, so like Rabbi as my dad. Oh, so like as Rabbi is to all his daughters. I had the visual. I could finally understand these verses. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Awesome. Okay? Because look, you can use these verses for husband and wife. You can use it obviously for Messiah and the assembly. You can use it for any authority structure, a relationship in an authority structure, a parent with their child, right? An employer with an employee. So, I mean, you can find it. Ministry with a person in the congregation. You can use this for those pictures on all kinds of different levels. It's very powerful that way. All right, Ashley.
Thank you for this teaching, Rabbi. I have two questions. One, regarding transition when the husband comes home from work or a big project or anything like that. And I understand my husband likes transition, but what do you do when you have children? Because I'm starting to back off, but my children don't understand that. And
just keep redirecting them to Michael. They'll figure it out eventually.
I might not have 3 kids anymore. Okay. I'll try.
You can
that
start
then.
to also teach them when they ask you things. Say, let me check with Dad first, okay? And you say, meaning their dad. So you're going to talk to Michael, right? Say, let me go check with. They ask you something. You either send them to Michael, or you can say, make them understand that you're going to check.
Okay.
So they see you. People learn by observation. Okay? They're going to. They always. The old saying is, your actions speak louder than your words. Kids watch you. And ladies and gentlemen, you're married, whatever you do in front of those children, they are learning what husbands and wives either are or should not be. But that's all they see. They watch how you treat each other. And I know some of you would try to do things behind closed doors. They hear it through the door anyway. Okay, you can't hide this from them. And so, but if you want to use it in a positive way, you can teach the children how you feel about your husband and that your submission to him by telling them That's great, let me check with dad. Oh, that's great, let me check, right? Okay? And so, ladies, you do the same thing. You could do that with your husbands. You're doing something with your friends and they want something, and they say, let me check with my husband. Okay? Before I make this decision, let me just give him a call. Let me just make sure we don't have, And by the way, even husbands can check with their wives just because maybe the wife has something planned you need to know about. Checking with each other is important to show that relationship. But from an authority point of view, you can definitely teach the children by saying, hey, I'm going to go check with dad and then I'll get back to you. All right? Or send them to him.
Okay. And then my second question is Ephesians 5, chapter 29, but feeds and cherishes it. I was wondering, and this may be a bit off topic, but a lot of people want me to go and hang out with them, and I'm trying to really change my marriage, like hardcore, and hopefully I made enough steps to be able to, for people to see that. But it feels like, oh, well, I want to spend time with you too. And it's like, well, hold on. First is my husband. Then, like, I'm trying to learn what Elder says. It says ministry. First my wife, then my children. Well, for me, it would be first my husband, then my children. And what is a respectful way of saying, I'm sorry, I would like to, but I need to take care of them first, because
That sounded good.
Well, I spent time with them before, but now they don't.
And say, I'm working. Just say what you just said. Say, hey, I'd love to go out with you. I know we've gone out in the past. Right now, I'm focusing on this. When this kind of gets where it needs to be, I'll be back available again to do those things. There's no reason you can't do that. Look, it's just like a person, let's say you're fasting for a period of time, and somebody asks you to go out and eat. You say, I'd love to. We could do that afterwards, but I'm fasting right now. I've got something I'm doing now that doesn't allow for me to do what you want, but we can do that later at another time when I'm finished with this thing I'm focused on. Okay?
Okay.
No problem telling them that.
Okay, and would it be appropriate to, we're married now, don't get me wrong, but in my head, I'm trying to pretend that we're not necessarily married, because when I go remarry my husband in a year, it's a real marriage and we don't have to work on ourselves as much as we're working on ourselves
No, I
now.
understand.
Would that be okay to say
Sure.
that as well?
You can say whatever you want. That's your freedom, as long as it's not going to be something that would be something Michael wouldn't want you to say. That didn't sound like that was a problem. But look, I want to help all of you. This is something that she brought up that's sort of separate, but it's included. I need you to just really, truly commit to being open and honest with people and not edit yourself when you know you need to do something or say something because you're afraid of the reaction. You do what needs to get done. You say what needs to get said. Now, if I'm expecting a possible bad reaction, I may try to package it in a way that's as best as I can, but I'm not going to water it down or not do it. If you need to spend time with Michael and not go out with somebody else, then you need to tell them that. And then you have to find a way, knowing how you're afraid they may react, how you can package it so they'll understand or not. But you can't control the reaction anyway, okay? You can't. But you need to stop avoiding or watering down or not doing what needs to be done or needs to be said just because you're afraid of the reaction, all right? I mean, if you worked here and spend enough time with, I say what needs to be said. The reaction is the reaction. I do not take that into account. I do take into account to the degree that if I can minimize the reaction, if it's a bad one, then I try, okay? But I'm not going to not say it if it needs to be said, or not do something if it needs to be done. But some of you really get caught up in your fear, and you don't when you should because you're afraid of the reaction. Which, by the way, you don't know the reaction is going to be what you're afraid of anyway. It might be. You might be right, but what if it's not what you thought it would be? I have to tell you, people have come to me often and been surprised by what my response was, including Elder. Elder's like, I didn't see that coming, because he was expecting me maybe to blast somebody, and I turned around in a totally different way. He was like, whoa, okay. You're going to be wrong a lot if you're going to assume, okay? So do what has to get done because it has to get done. Say what has to get said. Don't be afraid. All right. All right. Last one, then we got to get to the live stream with whatever time we've got left. And I forgot your first name.
David.
David. You know, actually, that was the name that was in my head. I was going to guess David. All right.
So I have found that, me personally, when I get into an argument with not just past relationships, but with just people that I fight to win. I do not fight to learn and grow. So could you maybe expand on that and maybe give an explanation or a better understanding of how I could fight to grow with this person or learn, not just with the spouse, but with mishmachah, with just people?
All right. First of all, as big as you are, I don't know why anybody would fight with you. Anyway, no, I couldn't resist that. Look, the bottom the bottom line is that you need to redefine winning, right? See, in your mind, winning means I'm going to get them to see that I'm right. Well, that may be a win, it may not. So if again, I'm going to speak to you in a very red way, right? A red personality way. Think and focus on the result, and if you get the result, you win. All right, so the result is the win, not the actual victory in the argument. If the result you want is just to win the argument, well, then that's the result you're going to get. That's fine. But if that's not the result, if you want to make sure the relationship is developing a certain way and you're trying to have that concern, then you may just be willing to lose a fight here or there because the result you're looking for is not going to come from winning the argument. You also got to probably recognize that most of the arguments are not winnable. Okay, mostly if you argue, there's no win. Okay, discussions can be productive. Arguments are almost never productive, okay? Nobody ever wins usually in an argument. But would that help, David? Repackage what win means, okay? See, almost all of the things you have in life is because of the way you have defined things and the perspective you put on things. If you change the perspective and the definitions, everything changes. The approach is now going to change. Well, I need to win. Change what winning means, and all of a sudden that's different. What does winning look like? A good marriage. Well, then maybe you're not going to fight so much over things that really are stupid because you won't have a good marriage. Okay? Okay, my wife will tell you, I generally, almost exclusively, do not make issue about anything unless it's something that needs to be made an issue of. Okay? Because it doesn't help anything, and I don't need to win that, all right? And you're like, how do you do that? Stop caring so much about everything. Look, there's a book out there called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Bleep. And the word isn't bleep. What it basically says is you can't care that much about everything, okay? You just can't. Nobody can care on that high enough a level about everything unless they're just going to be miserable all the time. So I listened to a lady actually do a teaching on a TED Talk on this concept, and the way she teaches it says, what if you only had so many? All right? I mean, what if you only had, 1 or 2 a day that you could do, or whatever it would be? You wouldn't get that upset or care that much about everything because you didn't have that many. So you'd have to be very selective about what you're going to get that emotionally connected to. You'd have to be really selective. So it's called the subtle art of not just caring that level about everything is really what it is. And so people look at me all the time like, how do you do that? Because they think, oh, well, I'm going to be all upset. I look at them, I go, I don't care. And they're like, how could you not care? I said, because I have only so much of that caring to use, and I'm not going to waste it on this. It's not complicated, but I don't have any blue disturbing that. All right? Very hard to do if you have any blue, because the blue cares about everything. So you need the red side in your personality, anywhere it is, to say, we can't do that. It's going to continue to make us, look, if you're doing that, you're already miserable. Because you just cannot have everything matter. Because then everything's going to irritate you, everything's going to bother you, because nothing is going to be perfect. So you have to find a way not to care so much about everything. Be much more selective how much caring, and I'm using the word caring instead of the other word, okay? Because you just can't do that and be happy. It's impossible, all right? So don't invest that much emotion in everything. That's the idea of what David was asking about winning, okay? That's an emotional thing. I need to win. If I know I'm right, I don't need to win the argument. I'll only fight with you if you're being disrespectful to my expertise, knowledge, whatever it is, if I feel like you're not respecting that. I don't care if you don't agree with me, but if you treat me with disrespect, then I might end up in, that's a different thing. So I'm not going to let you treat me disrespectfully. By the way, not agreeing with me is not disrespectful. It's the way you treat me and not having respect. I can totally respect you, and I do the same thing to you. Look, I know that you've got a lot of knowledge, you got a lot of information or experience. I just don't agree with you. As opposed to saying, you're an idiot, doesn't know anything. Well, see, that's not respectful. Okay, especially if that person has experience and history and studied and whatever, right? Okay, live stream. Sorry we keep getting to you guys so late. I told you the answer is to move. All right.
From Rena Zimmerman, it says, I believe at some point it was mentioned that a man should provide spiritually and emotionally, not just financially for his wife. What does spiritual and emotional provision look like?
Okay, and that's Rena, not Rena, but Rena. Hi, Rena. All right, I know Rena. All right, and hi to all of the Zimmermans. You guys are awesome. Okay, Terry, Chris, and the other 37 of you that live in that house. Okay. Naaman, Anthony, and there's too many. All right, so how does a man or a husband provide spiritually and emotionally? Okay, so first and foremost, it goes back to what I've said as far as, okay, provide and protect, and then I mentioned the third thing, create the environment or the space for that, okay? For whatever growth and development. That's the same thing you should do for a child. A man should also be doing for their wife as far as creating the best possible experience environment where they can become everything spiritually, emotionally, whatever it is that they need to do. So you have to provide that. Also, if you have expertise or you are already sound in that area, maybe you can share how you accomplished that. Maybe you're spiritually further ahead, so help them if they're interested in how to move forward spiritually. Maybe your bubble got popped before they did. A little challenging if the wife's gets popped first before the man's. Okay, it's a little tougher. But it says, well, as far as what does spiritual and emotional provision look like, it's not so much just providing them with something, but providing with the space for them to have it. And then if it's something you have, you can provide it. If it's not something you have, maybe you can lead them in a direction where they can find it. I mean, if they're emotionally challenged, maybe they need to talk to somebody that has expertise in whatever their emotional challenge is. So you provide for that. I've got some people that definitely need therapy, but their husbands won't pay for it, or they don't have the money, this kind of thing. They're not being provided for. So they're not being emotionally provided for. You can also provide emotionally by being there for them. When they're having an emotional problem, you don't just ignore it, discount it, or mock it, but you have to allow for that to be there, give them the comfort. You know, more often than not, if your wife is having a meltdown, you should walk over, put your arm around her and say, shh, it's okay, let's calm down. You're safe, I've got this, we'll figure it out, whatever it is, all right? Same thing you do to a child, right? Come over here, let me hold you, and then you bring that calmness, hopefully. Now, if your husband is just flying off the handle too, then no calmness is coming into anything, okay? So that's not gonna work, all right? So, I mean, that's sort of a broad stroke thing there for you, Raina. It would be much easier to answer if you were actually in a relationship and those needs were there and there was a struggle getting what you need, and we could talk about what that would look like more specifically, all right? All right, next.
From Elizabeth Lidke, says, I work part-time so that I can tithe and have money for feasts since my husband isn't in this walk. If he doesn't want me to work, should I submit to that and then not be able to pay for the feasts?
Okay. Look, you are married to this particular man. This man doesn't want you to work. You should submit to that. Now, of course, if you really want to work, you have a marriage problem. Not a tithing problem, not a feast problem. You want to work. You have your reasons. You might want to work because you want to go to the feast. You might want to work because you want to be productive in some way outside the house. It doesn't matter. If you want to work and he doesn't want you to work, you have two people not walking in agreement. So you have a marriage problem. Not like a bad marriage, you have a marriage problem. Then you have to figure out a way to fix that. And so that's where you have to be able to say to your husband, look, I want to work because I want to work, or I want to go to this feast and you don't want to pay for it, so I want to find a way to pay for it, but you're not letting me work. You have a marriage challenge, okay? And so, because again, you signed up to, if he said no, you're supposed to take the no. But if a no is something that really doesn't work for you, then you have a marriage problem. Does that make sense for everybody? Do you understand that? Okay? Because I think it would be wrong for you to go against your husband's wishes. I also think it's wrong for your husband not to let you work. Okay? But he's not under my authority, so I can't make him do that. All right, next question.
Okay, from Monica De Leon, says, can you expand what is the role of a widow? My marriage was complete. Now that he died, I am broken. What is the role of a widow?
Okay, so I think what Yahweh has to say about widows is beautiful. And so he wants us to understand that you as a widow, okay, can have, first of all, a powerful effect on us to know and help and take care of you guys, right? The widows, it says undefiled religion is to go and find the widows and the orphans, etc., and help them. But if you don't need that, then you should, especially if you're older, be able to, and we're going to get into this when we get to some of the other verses we're going to cover, then take that wisdom and understanding and share it into the younger ladies, right? So that's a role that came from your experience of being married and now being widowed. And then, if that's the case, and then you are able to share from your experience. And so you're in this really beautiful position from that understanding, okay? And of course, Monica, you and I talk occasionally, so you can always bring this up for more clarity the next time we speak. All right, next.
Okay, from all of the fruits, should a wife be submitting to her husband if he is asking, what he is asking is against Yahweh's commands, i.e. commuting to attend an event he deems important on Shabbat?
All right. You have, how do I explain this? You have a hierarchy of authority problem. You have committed to submit to your husband, but you're also committed to submit to your Creator. Which one do you think is a higher one? The Creator. So the Creator says you can't do that on Shabbat. So you can't do it on Shabbat. So you shouldn't submit to your husband on that. On the other hand, you probably have a marriage problem. Okay? Because if your husband's not going to respect it, you say, look, it's Shabbat, I can't do it, then you probably have a marriage problem. But no, you can't break. The only time you should not submit to your husband is when it causes you not to submit to your Creator. Is that fair? Is that clear? Otherwise, if it's not a Torah issue, you need to submit. So when your husband doesn't want you to work, like the previous lady was asking, it's not a Torah issue, okay? But it is a marriage issue because you don't agree with it. So you still might have a marriage issue. But as far as submission, if it's a Torah issue, you cannot do what he says. You have to do what Yahweh says. All right? If it's a Torah issue, Torah comes first. And you say to your husband, I'm sorry, I can't do it because it's Torah. I committed to Yahweh. He's the Creator, you're not. Okay? And so, no, I can't attend this event that you want to go to on Shabbat. Look, I got a lot of challenges with husbands and wives where the husband's not covenanted and the wife is, and this seems to be going along pretty okay while the husband has a job. Then all of a sudden he retires. Now he wants to do things on Saturday. He wants to go fishing trips and this kind of thing and go do this kind of, and he wants to do this stuff and he wants you to come with him on Shabbat. I hear this all the time. And you have to say, no. Oh, isn't there? No, there's no way to get around it. But see, here's the problem. Let's go back to what I said earlier. You need to say what needs to be said, whether the reaction is going to be bad or not. Because you're thinking, oh, but he's just going to go nuts. Look, you're either going to keep your covenant with your Creator or you're not. And you can't use your husband as an excuse. Okay? As a matter of fact, the verse we're going to get to in 1 Peter talks about the wife's behavior. You're welcome, Pete. And I don't mean Pete as in 1 Peter, it was Pete's question earlier. You know, the woman's behavior makes a difference, the believing woman's behavior makes a difference than an unbelieving husband. And so you can't do what Peter's talking about in 1 Peter 3 if you go and break Torah for your husband. Your husband has to see your commitment and how serious you are. You can't break it. Well, he's my husband. And he'll say, I'm your husband, you need to submit. They say, and he's the creator. Which one of you is higher? Okay. Sorry, but you lose on that one. All right? All right, next, and it might be the last one because it's 5:30.
Okay, from Jonathan Kaufman, he has a two-part question. Is it correct to say that from Genesis 1:28, fill the earth and subdue it, man's responsibility, in a general sense, is to create order from chaos, as Yah did in Genesis 1? And part two, if yes, is a husband's wife a reflection of his progress in this journey in overcoming and subduing his life around him, or is there a different perspective I should have on this?
No, I like that. That's good. And that kind of completes a sort of Zimmerman tie since he's married to Anna. So that was good. I got the from Raina and Anna, okay, indirectly through Jonathan. Jonathan, that was very good. I like your perspective on it, and my answer is yes. Okay, I think that works. All right, that's going to wrap it up here. Hopefully, those of you who didn't get your questions answered can be okay with that. I appreciate that very much. There was something I saw in the chat when I was in my office that I'll address real quickly. Somebody was saying that they were praying that I would be humble and not be overwhelmed by all the accolades people bestow on me. I said, don't worry. People call me the biggest garbage loser, this, that, and false prophet. Every day, there's a balance, okay? I don't have a bunch of people walking around just telling me like I'm great and all this other stuff all the time, all right? I appreciate when you guys do. It helps balance off all the attacks. So you can ask Elder. He gets to read all the emails and the posts and things. Keeps most of them from me, but there's plenty of them, okay? And so you don't need to worry about it going to my head. When you say it, though, I can appreciate that you value what the Father's doing through me. That's appreciated. I appreciate it very much.